Welcome to the Arthropologist. Today I wanted to do a review of the Vinci Multimedia Multi-Angle Easel. It's a mouthful, but it actually lives up to the long name. This is brand new to me, as it were. I bought it, I guess, about 4 months ago. I found it at Goodwill for $30. I needed a smaller easel in my studio, and I stumbled on this, examined it, looked at it, and I thought it would really work well. I brought it home and I really liked it, and I wanted to do a review of it after I had it for a few months. But the other thing was, I wanted to review it on the premise that if you buy it from Jerry's Artorama, which is a wonderful store, I'm not getting paid by anybody for anything, so this is just my honest assessment, but Jerry's is a wonderful place to buy stuff, and they're selling this easel for $130. Now, like I said, I paid $30. Is it worth $130? And I will tell you, after having it for 4 or more months, using it on numerous occasions, yes, it absolutely is, but that's if you have your expectations lined up correctly for what you're getting. Now, if you're wanting an easel that's actually very small and compact, that will fit in your studio and is easy to move around, easy to store, this is a wonderful little easel. The base, so the footprint of this thing at its widest is 24 by 28. And it only weighs 22 pounds, so it's not terribly heavy at all. It also folds up nicely. And let's do that real quick. You unscrew a couple of knobs in back, lift up the shelf that comes in the middle. Don't let it pinch your fingers. And let me tighten it down. And there you go. Now, like I said earlier, the footprint is 24 by 28. But when you fold it up, if you want to be absolutely accurate, the space that it'll take up is actually 26, because it's got a 24-inch base, but the knobs stick out 1 inch on either side. Let me get out of the way. So there you've got, if it's critical, if you're storing this in a closet, under a bed, or someplace where you got to get it down to the inch, 26 inches wide. The other thing, look at that. That is amazing. This thing folds up. I just really couldn't get a whole lot smaller. Roughly 2.5 inches deep, unless you count the bottom canvas holder. And that goes from the back to the front of the lip, about 4.5 inches. So 26 by 4.5. This thing would lay under a bed, in a closet. I mean, you can slide it if you've got bins where you've got canvases and stuff. This could even lay on its side or whatever. It's really narrow. The height of it, if you're storing it, about 54 inches. I'm not being exact, but that's close enough where if the mast or the very tippy top of the canvas holder, it's about 54 inches high. So it really has a very small footprint. This is truly a multimedia easel in that, let me loosen this. There we go. You can actually use oil, acrylic, watercolor, or pastel with this thing. It will lay all the way down. It'll even tilt backwards so you could work on the other side. So, I mean, it will really tilt tremendously to the back and to the front. So I work vertically when I work with watercolors, but if you like to lay things down, you could do that. It will tilt forward so that if you were working on pastels, then I don't tilt forward if I'm doing pastels, but some people do. And if you do, then you could tilt it forward and get dust out of the way if that's bothering you. Now, the one thing that I have done to this easel, it's not permanent. I suggest if you make any modifications to an easel or to anything, really think it through and don't make anything permanent. Try to make it as undoable as possible, because there's always a gotcha somewhere. Anytime you start engineering, there's something that's going to get you that you hadn't thought about. Now, where I was going with this, the lip that's on the bottom canvas holder and the top canvas holder is only like 1/8 of an inch or a little over 1/4 inch. It's not very deep, which is okay, except that if you start leaning this forward, that's not a lot to grab a hold of if it's tilting forward, and gravity always wins. So if you start leaning things forward too much, that lip can possibly not be enough, and you're just depending on kind of cranking it down, tightening the back knob, and hoping that works. And I'm just not a fan of that. If you're using just a board or just a regular canvas, then it's not an issue. It'll fit back there and up here with no problem. But if you're like me and you will staple cardboard to the back of your painting as a backer, or if you've got thicker, heavier duty stretcher bars, or if you are putting a framed piece up here to photograph or whatever, now you got issues, because there are feet back here. These little, there are little black rubber knobs as cushions, and they jack the thing up a little bit, and it'll actually make it taller than the lip, and so that can be an issue. That's why I just took a C-clamp. This is just birch plywood, like 1/4 inch plywood that I've actually sometimes will paint on. I had a piece left over, I cut it, and it's just C-clamped up here. I might do it permanently eventually, but right now I wanted to just see how it would work and if there are any gotchas. So far it's worked wonderfully. So what size canvas will this do? Well, if you crank it all the way up, it'll hold a 45-inch canvas by however wide you want it to be. There is a workaround, though. I had to work on a 50-something inch painting, and it wouldn't fit on this. Even if you lean it forward, you can't really lean it forward enough that the legs down here won't get in the way. It's just a issue. So what I did was a quick, easy workaround. This is masonite, but you could use plywood. And I just extended the shelf out. I just used clamps to clamp it on. Now, this shelf folds like this. So what you want to do is, if you clamp this down, you want the clamps to go behind the seam where the fold is, because if you don't, and you were to put pressure on the front of this, it's going to fold down. This is going to raise up, and you got all kinds of problems. Look at that. Won't really go anywhere. So I've got it clamped behind the seam where these two meet. So, I'm pushing pretty good, and it'll move a little bit, but it is stopping. Whereas if I had it back here behind this seam, now you can do that, and that can just give you problems. But let me show you what I was able to do with this. There's my shelf that it's sitting on, and I was able to take, and now there you go. I've got it where I'm holding, well, let's see what this is. Well, this is only 38 inches. This would hold 45, but I could have this thing cranked up where it would go all the way up to around, I think it was around 55, 54, so it adds about 10 inches. But the reason, even though that this is just 38 long, the reason this is a nice thing to keep in mind is that this canvas holder will not go extremely low. You see this right here? You may not. I'll try to remember to take a photograph of it. This is an L bracket. It came on this easel. I don't know if the person who had it put it on it, but I don't know why it was there. It was up here and it was in my way. I didn't like it. So I took it off and I put it down here, and here's the reason. This canvas holder on the bottom, it will, if that's not there, it will come off. And that's fine. I mean, that's how you actually put the thing on and take it off. The problem is, if you are sitting here and you're adjusting your painting and you don't have this L bracket on to stop it, then you could have potentially a heavy, large painting, or in the case of what I just showed you, you could have a framed painting that's behind glass, and this thing would come out and it would hit the floor and it would break or tear your canvas. So, and I've actually, this saved me once where I did have a canvas, a portrait that I had just finished that I'd worked for a long time on, and it was framed and I was photographing it for documentation, and it was heavy, it slid, and the only thing that stopped it from coming loose and hitting the bottom of the easel, possibly on the ground, was this L bracket. So I would strongly suggest doing that. It's not terribly big. It's just a little bracket. I have one screw in here. If I decide I want to take it out later, if I don't like it or it's in the way, because I want to take this off, it's one screw. And if I don't like it permanently, then I can take it off. I've got a hole, just a small hole, so it's no big deal. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Don't put something like this on here, on anything that you're doing permanently, until you know for sure what's going on, because sure enough, you drop this, you put this on permanent, and then all of a sudden, can I get this off? And you probably could, but you know, if you take your top canvas holder off, but that's what you could run into, as a situation where it won't go that way and it won't go this way, so you've kind of messed yourself up. So again, just be careful. The other thing is, this will not accommodate anything smaller than about 24 inches, at least held within these two holders. This holder, that's pretty much as low as it'll go, and that is approximately 24 inches. Well, there are always workarounds and things like that, but if you're going to be working really smaller, you know, you can move this up, but you can't move that down, which that's where you run into issues where if you're working on a large canvas or even a small canvas, you're limited on how you can position it. So you may have to stand to work on some things, actually have to sit on the floor to work on other things, because it would be down here like this, and you can't raise it up or whatever. So you might have to sit on the floor. So there are lots of things like that that, you know, if you've got a really expensive easel where the mast comes all the way down and you can bring this mast all the way down, then that's really nice, but it's going to be a lot more expensive and probably a bigger, more robust easel. So that's where I was talking about your expectations. You just don't want to expect more out of you don't want to expect $1,000 worth of easel out of a $130 easel. And you may be asking, well, why didn't the engineers make the mast where it would go all the way down? And the reason is simple. This thing pivots back and forth. And if it pivoted, if that mast were any longer, it would pivot right into this board, and then you couldn't use it once you're straightening it up, or you couldn't use it to tilt it forward for doing pastels. So I'm pretty sure that the engineers, designers, they put this board and made this as long as they felt like they could, and everything would still be reasonably workable. The knobs, they're a nice size so that you can grip them very easily. If you've got any arthritic problems or just problems with your hands, these are decent sized knobs that you can get your hands on and work with. If you screw it together properly, it's actually quite sound. It's not wiggling around. I'm really pleased with how robustly it's built. Also, on Jerry's website, you can either click on it through the website, or you can go to YouTube and type in this easel, and they actually have somebody assembling the thing. It's like 7 or 8 years old, but they'll show you how to assemble it. So that's really good. Well, I think that's about it. I've enjoyed this easel. I think you will too. So that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, a like, and if you really like it, I wouldn't mind if you subscribed. So I'm Bill Wilson, and I'm the arthropologist.